right, well, let's dive in then to the news yesterday, which was terribly disappointing as Ceedy Duce is traded. The Philadelphia Eagles, of all people. And when so like when the news broke, already it's kind of one of those shocking, take your breath away moments, right? When you talk about a pure fan favorite, Ceedy Duce is up there with maybe like the fastest, up there with like Alvin Kamara or anybody, like the fastest risers that I have ever seen since covering the New Orleans Saints from 2013 on, right? He was immediate, his impact, but mainly the fan base kind of latching onto him, the passion that he played with, the memes that he would create, his trolling of other players on the field, drawing personal foul penalties. Ceedy Duce was beloved. When we talked about Tyrann Mathieu, one of the main ways I always kind of framed it in my head was like, can you imagine a backfield with Ceedy and Tyrann? Like, it's two of the most passionate football players that I've ever seen in my entire life. It's going to be awesome, right? Well, the news breaks that he gets traded. Like, oh my God, what the hell? And it hurts already. You're like, all right, let's see if they got anything back, right? He's a good player. And granted, this sort of immediate thought, especially with the benefit of hindsight, seems a little naive. But, I'm thinking like, okay, maybe they got like a third-round pick or something.
That's where my head went.
Yeah. Because from a pure talent standpoint, that's probably what it should be. Like, that's what he dictates. However, all you got was a 2023 fifth-round pick and the worst of the Eagles' two 2024 sixth-round picks. You also gave up a seventh. So in the end, you give up Ceedy and a seventh for a fifth and a bad sixth. And we will get into the dynamics that created this trade, this situation, why this had to happen. But I will say this. This is one of the worst trades of recent memories. One of the worst trades that I have ever seen. And I want to be clear here. Just because I am saying that it is an awful trade does not mean that I do not understand why the trade had to take place, right? Or that I do not understand why the Saints had to do what they had to do. Sometimes in life, you are forced to do a bad thing because you have no other options. But in that same light, like if you're someone who's immediately like, well, T-Bob, what do you want to do? Or you're just an idiot. It had to happen. Okay, that's fine. But there is no way that you look at this trade and see any good in it. You may have avoided a toxic situation, which had to happen. But let's be objective here. The team got worse. You didn't get anything in return. And you strengthened an NFC rival for the second time in 1 year. You already gave up a first, 2 seconds, and a third, and a fourth for Olave to the Eagles, and now you gave a player of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's caliber. Like, it checks every bad box. You got worse. You got nothing in return, and you made an NFC rival stronger. Okay? And when you think about the Eagles, they're kind of right there with the Saints. Great roster, division winner, playoff team. Unsure about quarterback as well. I don't know if Hurts has the ceiling of a Winston, but I am actually a Jalen Hurts fan. Making that team better that you're going to be competing directly with is not good. So no, this is an awful trade, even though it seems like it had to happen.
Yeah, it had to be bad for this to go down, in my opinion. Sounds like you kind of agree, T. It had to be one of those situations that you felt like would become incredibly toxic. It would mess up the locker room. It would mess up the dynamic of what you've built there because you didn't get anything of value. Because, like, when you look at the picks, like, could it turn into something? Yeah, you can look back in the archives and you can find me a 6th and 7th rounder that's turned into a Hall of Famer, okay? I understand that. But for me, where the Saints are, you don't go sign Tyrann and Jarvis and the moves that they made with Olave if you didn't think your window was still open to go win a championship. Yep. If you didn't think you were close to winning a championship. If you didn't feel like you had the roster to go out there and compete this year to make the playoffs and make a run. So like T said, this made you worse, and it made a team that you're competing with better, and you didn't get great value. A third rounder was what, like, I'll be completely honest. I thought that was the basement of what the Saints got back. Wow. I truly did. I'm like, oh, man. I mean, that's a player that his stock is just rising. He's known around the league. He can get under your skin. He's got cover skills. He can tackle in the open field. He plays a position in nickel that's becoming more and more important every single year. because of the way offensive football is played in the NFL, and you get a 6th and 7th, or 5th and 6th, and you give up a 7th in the player.
And it's because the Eagles knew. Now, I don't know why you made this deal with the Eagles. I feel like other teams would have been willing to give up a similar price, but it's because the Eagles knew, like any of these negotiations where the player is unhappy and they know the situation has become untenable, the Eagles had you over a barrel.
And I know he's on the last year of his rookie deal, so when I say like the minimum, I'm like, you could still go for player. Like if you had, let's say, a situation at tackle that you were trying to find a player, like was there not a tackle out there that you could have maybe gotten a pick and the tackle for Ceedy Duce?
So that's the problem, because let's talk about the dynamics, right? Because the dynamics are what leads to all of this. And the problem is, it must have been very well known, Jake, in NFL circles that this CD situation was not going to work, and therefore you did not have to give up anything to get him, right? Like the offers must have been exceedingly low, basically taking advantage of the Saints. So here are the dynamics. Ceedy wanted to be paid big money, right? He wanted $12 million a year. According to Jeff Duncan's piece in NOLA.com, reportedly, that's about $4 million more than the Saints were willing to pay him. So he wanted 12, Saints wanted to pay him 8. And look, you could say that's only $4 million, right? Surely Ceedy's worth that additional $4 million in the cap. I, as someone who does this as a fan and, just looking outside in and has a lot of fun with this, that makes sense to me. But the Saints and Mickey Loomis and this front office, and Kai Harley, who think about every single dollar very intently, they decided that $4 million is too much. And really, think about it this way: instead of thinking about it as just like $4 million, think about it from a percentage standpoint, right? You wanted 33% more than what the Saints were willing to give him. That's a pretty big gap. Like that's a larger sounding gap than $4 million, and that's why the Saints probably were a bit miffed when they heard that he wanted 12 a year. Saints didn't want to do that. Very clear about that. Talks break down. Next thing you know, Ceedy's not practicing. He's holding in. He's reportedly not listening to coaches. Then he returns to practice. There was a specific moment in the Duncan piece again in NOLA.com today where they're doing 7-on-7. Ceedy gets dinged up a little bit. He's limping or something. Yeah. And he starts yelling at the trainers, see, like, this is what y'all wanted. Which, I get, right? Talking about the kind of lack of long-term security that he has in his current situation, playing on the final year of his rookie deal. And so what you see there is the same thing that made Ceedy beloved and made Ceedy great, his personality, his drive, I think is what scared the Saints so badly. Is why they end up accepting this awful sort of deal, because they are worried about that personality, as Jake talked about, messing up the locker room, right? Like that same powerful personality could represent a great problem if left unchecked. And now the man who once beat up Michael Thomas and almost like caused Michael Thomas and the Saints to break up has now found his way to Philly. Boys, when did the Saints play the Eagles? I think it's New Year's.
I think it's it's week 17.
Bruh, the Mike Thomas. Let Mike Thomas line up across from Ceedy. Both guys are going to be getting after it, but Mike Thomas is probably finally like, okay, now I finally got a chance to try to get you on the field again. Even though Mike Thomas was in the wrong in all of that report. That's why Sean Payton and everybody took Ceedy's side. But crazy, man. Just like, of all the things yesterday, and you know what? You look back on the Underhill interview, and he already knew it. He just couldn't say it yet because of, protecting sources and whatnot, because he's alluding to some trades maybe being in the work. And then the second after the trade goes down, an article's already up on NewOrleans.football about the situation. So it must have gotten pretty bad. And again, it was I understand the dynamics. It doesn't make, I understand why the breakup happened. It doesn't make the emotion of the breakup feel any better. It still really hurts.
It does. And again, you said it off the top. Fan favorite. Like, he played for Florida, and we still all loved him. Okay, this is somebody that really embraced himself to the fan base. And just looking at what he did for you, obviously, like T said, I mean, he kind of rose to the top extremely fast. And so all those things kind of come into play. But now it's okay, since we cover the Saints here, it's what do the Saints do now?
Yeah.
Like that's a position that you don't like. I have to imagine, even though you didn't get a great return for Ceedy Duce, you don't make the move if you don't feel like you've got a replacement that's going to be at the same level or close to it. So they draft Alontae Taylor early in last year's draft. And so they're going to count on guys like that, like Alontae Taylor, to be able to step up and play in that very important position.
Yeah, well, exactly, right? That's a great point, Jake. Like, you don't do this unless you feel comfortable in your room and you feel like you have options. Who are those options? We'll get into it next right here on OTB. Look, if you're hanging out in the Bayou Ford YouTube chat, shout out, man. Get your comments in there. What do you think about Ceedy? We'll do a little Would You Rather during our flustering hour. Look, like it, share it. You already know the deal, my friends. And we'll be back, more Saints talk, because we also have a final 53-man roster. How about that? More coming up next here on OTB. All right, we were talking about Ceedy Duce. Obviously, everybody's still very sad. Before we talk about who's next, I have one final question on the Deuce. If it wasn't toxic, Jake, do you think they would have let Ceedy play out his contract the same way they did Trey Hendrickson? Like, if he was willing, if he was still all in and just like, you know what, it sucks, but whatever. I'm going to go do what I can for the team this year. I'm going to go all in. Would it have been a situation where the Saints are like, well, we still know we don't want to re-sign him, so we need to get something? Or do you think they would have traded him anyway?
Probably not.
I kind of think they would have done the same thing with Trey Hendrickson and just let him play it out.
A toxic relationship can be from both sides. I'm not blaming one side or the other because we're not in that building. We don't know.
Fair.
I mean, it can be from both sides, but
well, and I understand.
If it wasn't,
you feel like you're worth it.
You got to let him play it out. I mean, I think he's valuable to your team.
Yeah.
I think he's, the dynamic of the locker room. The guys love him. I mean, we've seen that. He's embraced the city and the Pelicans tweets that he had and everything. Now, not to say that it couldn't get bad, obviously, but I think you let him probably play it out.
Yeah.
If it wasn't a situation that you thought could fracture the locker room.
I think I'm inclined to agree because the bottom line is I don't think a 5th and 6th round pick are like make up for what you lose in this year where you actually have a chance of being very good. Now, the other element in all of this, right, is no matter how toxic it is, the only way you can feel comfortable enough to make this move, as Jake was talking about, was if you feel like you have somebody who can do what he did to an acceptable level. Now, you're not going to have anybody be able to troll like Ceedy. We should probably go through our top Ceedy moments here in a bit. But when you look at who's next, Jake, you got Bradley Roby on this roster. You got P.J. Williams. You got Alontae Taylor. You got Justin Evans. They got very big shoes to fill. Mm-hmm. Who do you think out of that group is maybe going to be the first man up?
I mean, it feels like Alontae Taylor, just because.
So really, first man up.
I mean, where you drafted him, his skill set. He's been a guy that's played receiver in college. He's kind of moved around the defensive backfield in college. He's got a skill set that I think would thrive in the slot. Alontae Taylor, yeah, you're a young cat, but I would give you the opportunity. Bradley Roby is somebody else, and I know you're probably going to talk about him, but he's going to be valuable, it feels like, on the outside. I mean, he's going to be obviously your third corner on the outside as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I honestly don't know who it's going to be. I think that Bradley Roby is someone who was exciting last year, but then Paulson Adebo kind of emerged, and Bradley Roby didn't really have as much of a role. I think that Roby had a very good camp, and it feels like quite often we came in here and we're reading about Bradley Roby making plays in practice, both at nickel and on the outside. So I think maybe it's Roby first man up with Taylor coming in later. But what was Alontae Taylor had an interesting tweet, Danny, if you want to look it up. Basically something along the lines of I can do this or I can do that-ish. Maybe get it to me. But you also got Justin Evans, who is maybe lost in the shuffle a bit here. And to be honest, I don't know what exactly Evans or Williams, P.J. Williams, what their role will be. But the point is, you have a very deep secondary that you feel very comfortable in, especially with the emergence of Paulson Adebo. And that's one of the reasons why you let Ceedy go. We just got to see which one of these guys is going to be able to fill in. And funnily enough, what does it say? So Alontae Taylor, no context, but after the news, tweets this video with the quote, "I can do that ish." So, or, the word not ish, but you go. So, okay, so maybe it is Alontae Taylor stepping up. Either way, ironically, Jake, the football part is going to be the easiest thing to replace here. And Ceedy was a very good player, so I don't want to make too light of it, but like it was a lot of everything else that he brought, the just undeniable attitude and swagger, the fun, the locker room inspiration that you're going to be missing a bit with Ceedy. Top Ceedy moments, boys. Go around the room. I mean, there's roundhouse kicking the Falcon. There's posing in Tom Brady's face. For me, it will always be snatching old boy's mouthpiece from the Bears. I've never seen anything like that. It's the equivalent of snatching someone's chain. It got that man kicked out the game. It was the most elite level trolling I have ever seen on the NFL level, and it's I will be missed, or he will be missed.
That was a great moment. I think doing the roundhouse kick to the Falcons logo is my personal favorite.
That's tight.
That's two teams that don't like each other. It's a rival. It's not really a secret. Everybody knows. I mean, you ask a Falcons fan who they hate the most, they're going to say the Saints. Saints going to say the Falcons. And so, like, he embraced that. He bought all into that. Like, you never know in the NFL who you're going to end up with. You never do.
Yeah.
He didn't care. He's out there, and he was a Saint at the time, and he went out there and kicked the logo, loved it.
He did tweet "Fly Eagles Fly" yesterday, so he's about to be all in there and hating the Giants and the Commanders and everybody else. Mario, favorite moment?
I remember his rookie year. He had a really nice stick against Leonard Fournette when they played in Jacksonville. And I kind of knew from that point on, like, all right, the Saints got a player here.
Oh, wow. Okay. What about you, Danny? What you got?
It's got to be the stare down right in front of Tom Brady's face.
The crossed arms?
Yeah.
After the pick?
It was such a defensive dominant game that they just cherry on top.
That image will live in Saints history.
It's true. And it was a defensive dominant game, and it was like Ceedy being like half a foot shorter than Tom Brady, really just driving it home. I mean, that is a man who, for better or worse, did not fear anyone. That is the epitome of the attitude that I want my defensive backs to have. Like, and let's be clear, like Godwin kind of cooked Ceedy last year in one of those games. Now, granted, the Saints outplayed the Bucs, but Godwin had success, but it don't matter. Ceedy's still going to come after you, and he did come up with picks in both games against Brady. So it sucks, man. And he's going to be out for blood when they play the New Orleans Saints. So
Yes.
we're going to see.
Yes.
We're going to see.
Him and Jarvis in the slot. Sign me up.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoa, dude, that's going to be a battle. 53-man roster came out. No real surprises. Traquan made it. Marquez made it. Zach Bond made it. Couple fun facts from Rod Walker's breakdown. Chris Olave, first Saint, born in the 2000s. How about that? In case you didn't feel old.
Honestly,
Are we in
thought that would've-
2023? That's surprising.
2022.
Oh,
I thought
never
that
mind.
would have happened probably a year ago.
Yeah.
Oh, so,
Okay.
okay.
How about that?
Feeling good.
6 former Buckeyes on the roster.
No surprise there either.
As Ohio State sits here as a 17.5-point favorite over Notre Dame. We broke it down on snaps yesterday. I might want to get into it a bit today. I'd love to pick your brain, Jake, on where you're riding with that game. But right now you got Mike Thomas, Marshawn Lattimore, Bradley Roby, Nick Vannett, Pete Werner, and Chris Olave. Can you all guess who has the second most players on this team?
Which school you mean?
Yeah.
Tennessee.
That is correct.
It
Did
is?
you look at the document? I don't think you did. I
No.
think you genuinely
I mean, I
did
had-
that. Yeah, yeah.
I was just Alontae Taylor, AK.
Yeah.
And you got
Marquez Keller, Mario's boy.
just Mario.
I don't think you're going to get the last one. I didn't realize that he went there either.
Oh.
Shy Tuttle.
Oh, yeah. Wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have had it.
So 4 players.
Would not have gotten
in Tennessee.
there.
How about that? You got
Would not have
13
gotten there.
SEC players overall to lead the way. You got 6 players from California. You got 6 from Texas. And Jake, I know this is about to make you happy. Only 2 5-stars on
Yep.
the list. Jameis Winston and Andrews Pete.
Yep.
But Demario Davis, Marcus Davenport, Peyton Turner, Carl Granderson, all former 2-stars. How about that?
Wasn't Tyron in one service a 2-star?
Yeah, I would say Tyron's a 2-star as well. That's
Yeah.
right, yeah. How about that? Demario Davis was once a 2-star.
Ryan Ranchick was almost a welder.
Yeah, very fair. Very fair.
I mean, great point.
It shows you that we all develop at different rates, right?
But it's like, no.
And look, no real surprise here. Again, this was a roster that was already really kind of hammered out. Like we talked about this at the beginning of camp. It's rare that you see this complete of a roster from the beginning.